Madison, welcome to Gruen. We'll get to our socially and emotionally distant panel in a moment. But first, the AFL Grand Final was this weekend, but the star of the show was a bit of turf that did what Melburnians couldn't and crossed the border.
Two pieces of turf from the MCG are on their way to the Gabba for the AFL Grand Final.
Carefully rolled up and loaded onto a refrigerated truck, the grass will be kept at a crisp 12 degrees on its 22-hour journey to Brisbane. It will be relayed just in time for the first ever grand final outside of Victoria.
Yes, it was the boldest sporting turf transplant since Warnie's, and it inspired every commercial network to cover the story in their own unique way.
Hello, turf.
Hello, turf.
Hello, turf.
Hello, turf.
Hello, turf.
Hello, turf. I'm Will. But this was all a marketing stunt created by Rebel Sport for their Putting the G in the Gabba campaign, which, come to think of it, already had a G, which makes this whole campaign gabbage. That explains why the news was suddenly full of subtle logos on the ground, close-ups of the slogan-covered truck, the same slogan coincidentally used on breakfast TV, a Rebel tracksuit on this former player, and an actual Rebel Sport employee sharing his expertise on Channel 10 News.
I think it'll be a special moment for them.
I bet you do. And sure, by some calculations, Rebel's refrigerated truck emitted 2.68 tonnes of carbon dioxide during its journey, but at least the sporting community loved it.
Thoughts, Croft? Ridiculous.
Here's the incredible thing. The hallowed turf was eventually placed outside the boundary line of the Gabba. Maybe because it looked like the spot where they buried whoever came up with the idea. Still, we know someone who loves a marketing G-up, so we've had a bit of our home turf delivered to the man who puts the G in Gruen, Russell in Melbourne. Here you go, Russ. It's the pitch from the pitch.
Magnificent.
It'd be more magnificent if it was grass from my place, but anyway, joining Russell Howcroft is Carolyn Miller, Priya Patel and Todd Sampson. Tonight, we're going inside Australia's House of Worship, a place where early on weekend mornings, disciples break bread and listen to the angelic chorus sing. By the way, there's a 10-hour version of that song on YouTube. Catch the whole thing on Gruen XXL. The first Bunnings opened in Western Australia in 1886. There it is, and there's the little sausage sizzle out the front. Now owned by Wesfarmers, Bunnings rakes in nearly $15 billion a year and has 375 stores, nowhere near as many as the number of independent stores it steamrolled on the way. Bunnings has put out over 650 ads this year. So let's drill into the messaging.
It's easy to give your garden a fresh look.
Rejuvenate your bathroom this DIY July. Where you find a competitor's low price on the same stock item, will beat it by 10%.
There's inspiration everywhere when it comes to color. So go find the colors that inspire you, and we'll help put it in a can.
Bunnings Warehouse. Ah, Bunnings. It's where lowest production values are just the beginning. These days, working at Bunnings is actually the best way to get into acting. Bunnings' distant competitor is Mitre 10. Its ads don't use staff, but they do have tools.
You, beauty. Time for a coldie. More chippy, less lippy. All right, fellas, you're ready.
Get into Mitre 10 and grab your very own Talkin' Scotty today.
Sure won't. Mitre 10 ads are all about family. Bunnings is the Goliath, but its ads are pure David, particularly the one with David. Carolyn, how do they do it?
I think that Bunnings generally has a fantastic way of feeling everyman. So obviously using the staff in the ad is a big part of that, but also the staff in the ad really live up to the experience of the staff in store. So I think when you go in, it is, you know, it's very relaxed. You can go in middle of a paint job where you're covered in paint and you feel very, very ropey. You can take your dog in and everyone's quite friendly. So they really don't feel like a corporate behemoth. And in many ways, Mitre 10 actually does, because they're spending money on a brand ambassador, which is a very corporate thing to do.
It's a monumental achievement when you think about it. You've got a $15 billion company that is basically a monopoly. And in Australia, most times you either get hit with people wanting to cheer for the underdog, or you get hit with tall poppy syndrome. So they had two gates in which people to attack them, and somehow they switched off both of those. They've tapped into the cultural zeitgeist like MasterChef did. What MasterChef did for cooking, they've done for DIY, and they've done it brilliantly.
It's very interesting how the advertising industry has actually reassessed Bunnings. If you go back, let's say 10 years ago, and we were talking about Bunnings ads, we would all be going, "Oh my God, they're horrendous." But actually, what's happened is we've realised that they've built an unbelievably successful business off the back of doing hokey stuff. It's a really important lesson, I think, just in the profession of advertising. It doesn't all have to look a particular way. If you can make it consistent and if you can make it relentless, then there's power just in that.
Earlier this year, Bunnings made the news when someone else filmed their stuff.
A tense standoff between Bunnings staff and a customer refusing to wear a face mask.
And you're discriminating against me.
Discrimination. We're all just trying to all be in this together. We all have
All
to
in
wear a
what
mask.
together? I actually don't. And you're not authorised by the Australian government to even question me about it.
It's a condition of entry of our store as
Then that's discrimination, and I can have you sued personally for discriminating against me as a woman.
And if you can find a customer with a lower IQ, we'll beat it by 10%. Priya, was Karen great for brand at Bunnings?
Absolutely. I think that whole Karen incident managed to spotlight in a really natural and authentic way what the staff do day in, day out. So it just showcased perfectly how well trained they are, how professional they are, how patient they are in the face of lunacy. And I think that really galvanised the whole country to get behind them as well. So everyone just really felt like, oh my God, I really feel for those people dealing with that on the front line. And that's a huge amount of positive PR that has huge amounts of value for a brand or a business. And I think the funny thing that came off it as well is that, you know, there were so many Karen memes or TikTok parodies of that whole scenario that it would have opened Bunnings up to a whole sort of younger generation, connecting them with a whole different audience, and actually really cement them in popular culture as well, which is something every brand is desperate to do all the time. So it was a brilliant moment and they really capitalised on it.
One thing I would add to that is it's very interesting that Bunnings aren't the first company to use staff in their advertising, but they are the first company to not make their staff do anything. Like to make their staff just stand there in their store talking stuff. They're not showing staff doing anything, you know, showing their lifestyle or showing how they care about customers or doing anything that layers advertising onto it. It's just straight to camera. And that's what's powerful about their staff usage rather than trying to overproduce it.
So when they first came up with this advertising model, Will, they didn't say, let's make ads as training videos, but that's actually what the ads are. They're not just training videos, they're obviously selling the product of the day. But actually, they are training staff on how to behave. So day in, day out, the staff, yes, they're either working or they're watching Bunnings Warehouse ads when they go home. So when they go to work the next day, they're actually seeing how they're supposed to act when they go into their daily job. So that piece of footage there was the staff acting as they've seen staff act in ads. It's a beautiful sort of flywheel, an amazing virtuous circle that they've come up with. And it's a sort of secondary part of the genius of the advertising, but it's genuinely a really important part of the power of their advertising.
It also allows diversity. It gives them such flexibility when you're doing that many pieces of communication a year. You want it to be somewhat fresh, because it'd be easy for that to be wallpaper. And they can choose male, female, they can choose from different communities. They can decide to dial up at certain times of the day which people would be most relevant to the market that's watching. So it gives them an incredible ability to customize their message to different segments in the market.
I also think people forget how valuable that workforce is in and of itself. So that's 40,000 people who are brand advocates, who all live and breathe the Bunnings brand and then go home and talk to their families and their friends about it. And making them feel proud and ownership of the business is a really powerful tool. So you look at brands like Virgin who've done that with their hosties and they've made them feel like their role is so important and they're very glamorous. And I think that talking up of staff is actually incredibly valuable and it pays back commercially, you know? It actually leads to commercial returns.
Yeah, and actually just thinking about how Bunnings has evolved kind of in the last 20 years, I remember renovating a house about 15 years ago, and I swear going into Bunnings and kind of hanging around the nails or the timber, and people would run away from you. Like, the staff were not interested in a woman having a look at that stuff. Completely the opposite now. So I would argue that, yeah, there definitely has been evolution in how helpful the staff see themselves.
Bunnings is Australia's most trusted brand. Despite underpaying workers millions, it's even more trusted than the ABC, if you can believe that, which you can't because the ABC just told you. Bunnings has many trusty tools in its marketing tool belt. Store layouts that are like Aldi for tradies, price tags that look more like Chemist Warehouse, and a catalogue that looks like the world's shittiest adult colouring book. They also had this catchphrase.
Lowest prices are just the beginning.
Until they quietly ditched it in 2018. Todd, does that mean that highest prices are now the beginning?
As much as I do love Bunnings, and I am renovating, I'm building now, so Bunnings is a part of my life, they are a ruthless profit machine. And one of the things I remember was their range pricing. So their strategy and technique is just so clever. So for one product, whether it's a saw, they would have very specific and slightly obscure numbers. They would say that's $9.50, that's $11.20, and that's $16.70. They know that most people will choose the middle, so they would stack the margin in the middle and assume everyone's going to go there. It is an incredibly well-run, sophisticated profit machine that's wrapped in this parochial love. It's spellbinding, but it's also branding.
Well, this is an incredible feat of Bunnings, Priya, I think, is the fact that they are a ruthless money-making machine, and yet they've convinced us to be Australia's most trusted brand.
I think there's just authenticity that people can't get past when they see that staff in the advertising, when they meet those staff for real, those simple aprons. It creates trust. And trust is a very emotional thing, so you can't explain it rationally. They may be looking at price-saving mechanisms, they may be cutting costs, but actually what people see is that warm, kind of human interaction that the brand lives and breathes every day.
Bunnings only ventured online in the past 2 years, where now you can buy recently divorced dad couches from its marketplace. Russell, does Bunnings want us to shop online, or do they want us in the warehouse?
Well, they want you to do both. They want you to just be totally engaged with Bunnings. So, of course, on some occasions, you may not be able to get into the warehouse and you'll go online. It's almost like the graduates for Bunnings. You know, you might start off by walking around the warehouse, and then as you get into the relationship, then you might have a little wander around what they do on the website. What I think is really interesting is that so many brands talk about having a relationship with their customer. And in the main, it's nonsense. In the main, it's very, very unusual that any of us really want to have a relationship with a brand. But with Bunnings, people actually do. They genuinely want to be engaged because they learn. I mean, online you can learn how to build a shed. And they can share videos that they're producing themselves. So it is genuinely a relationship system, which is what you want to do online. So, you know, people aren't going to forego going to Bunnings Warehouse in Melbourne as of tomorrow. People are going to be able to go, and I can imagine the pent-up excitement. People are just going to go and just wander this. The other thing that I think is so interesting about when you go to Bunnings, you sort of, you know, and you pick up that thing you don't need. You're doing it because you're actually thanking Bunnings for existing. You're saying
it's a refuge for men. It's true.
It's
like, a place to
seriously,
hide.
I'm going to buy those gardening gloves. It's like, thank you, Bunnings. I'm going to buy those gardening gloves. Yeah, and make you more profitable. So you can keep on spending all that wonderful advertising money.
They definitely want you to come in. They make very few people can leave the Bunnings trap, the Bunnings warehouse, without buying something. Very few people. In fact, Victor Gruen, namesake of this show, would be super proud because they are also the masters of scripted disorientation. You go in thinking you're going to get a screwdriver, you walk out with the gloves, you walk out with potentially a drill and a hammer.
But they do definitely want you to walk through their store because, on average, people spend more in store than they do online. So 89% of shoppers are likely to just chuck one extra thing in their basket as they're going around. And that's because humans are very emotional. We shop emotionally. It is a cathartic experience for us. And you're wandering through the aisles and you might see a special, or a staff member might just upgrade you on your purchase. So your basket size is always bigger when you're in store. And it's very hard to replicate that browsing experience online. So, yes, there's content, yes, there's inspiration, but actually getting you to whack that one extra thing in your basket is much harder in that digital environment. It's easy when you're in store.
Mitre 10 has sponsored the block for the past decade. Bunnings has its own block, Lego. It also has a podcast and reams of DIY YouTube content.
If you want to make your door stand out in the street, I'll show you how.
That has over 1 million views. But who doesn't love watching paint dry? Bunnings also launched the Channel 7 renovation show with DIY tips for renters. It's like Better Homes and Gardens if you can't buy a home and you don't have a garden. The series doesn't just mention the brand, it hammers it.
We're from Bunnings. We're here to help.
This is from Bunnings. This is an outdoor cushion that I found in Bunnings. And with Bunnings install service,
head to the Bunnings website, pick up your free copy of the Bunnings magazine in store.
The show looks shit, but at least they can build their own logie. Carolyn, who is this for?
These home renovation shows are obviously massively popular at the moment. There's entire channels devoted to them. But this particular one is for people who aren't willing to go and knock a wall down but still want to do a little bit of light touch cosmetic improvement. And that is a lot of people. I'm going to say skewing women, but certainly renters are a part of it, but it's much broader for people who don't necessarily want to get on the tools. So for people who just want to do the little things around the home that they can do themselves, this is perfect for them.
It's often said that commercial media is a sausage fest, and honestly, it's worse than I realise.
Bunnings sausage sizzles.
Bunnings sausage sizzles.
Sausage sizzle at Bunnings.
Bunnings is shaking up its sausage sandwiches.
Are you a fan of the sausage sanger at Bunnings on the weekend?
Well, I'm a huge fan, Georgie.
I was surprised to learn recently that Mitre 10 has a sausage sizzle too. Russell, how come Bunnings get all the sausage glory?
Weirdly, the sausage is a core part of what the brand is. So, if I said to you, Will, that range is a big part of Bunnings, you say, yep, absolutely it is. If I say to you, value is a big part of Bunnings, yes, it is. Service is a big part of Bunnings, yes, it is. Sausages, is that a big part of Bunnings? Yes, it is. Which is so weird. It's incredibly strange that they managed to... There's an old advertising model that we used to call the brand Parthenon. I've drawn one there for you, Will, right? So that's the old...
That reads really well on television, Russ. You've just really
I know, right?
Nailed that.
So if you think of a brand, deconstruct a brand in your head. Deconstruct a brand in your head, and it's got a roof, which is the proposition. Then it'll have a ceiling, let's call that the personality of the brand. Then it'll have supports, right? It'll have brand Parthenon.
Yep.
So maybe the roof is relaxed and comfortable. Yep. Yeah. So that's ultimately we want all Australians to feel relaxed and comfortable.
Yeah.
The ceiling is a personality, and then you've got these pillars, and it's so bizarre that on the core pillars of a $15 billion brand is sausages.
And it's not... I know charity's involved, and last year they raised $50 million. Yeah. So it's amazing what they're doing. But strategically, if you pick it apart from a marketing perspective, the psychology trick they're playing on us is localizing a massive $15 billion company owned by Coles and grounding it in all the communities. So the communities themselves defend that as if it's some kind of embassy of hope through sausages.
I also think it stops the store being a male zone. So what the sausage sizzle actually does is open it up to families and women to spend time in this space, in this massive warehouse. So it's not just a bunch of blokes looking at their tools. It's a place where families can come. There's a play centre. Everyone gets lunch. It's endless entertainment for the whole family. And I think that's where the brand stretch comes in and makes it more of a national icon rather than a sort of niche boys' club thing.
The sausage sizzle's not there 7 days a week. It's a special thing. It's a nice to have. It's an additional touch because it is also very cheap. And it's something that we associate growing up with things like school fetes and community kind of outreach things. And so therefore, yes, it's intrinsic to their brand, but they didn't have sausage sizzles for the last 7 months because of COVID, and people still went to Bunnings. So, you know, yes, it's a nice to have, but it's on top. It's not intrinsic so much.
Well, it's not in the house. It's not holding up the Parthenon.
Russell's going to have to redo his drawing.
You know it's working. You know it's working when they said there's going to be no more sausage sizzle trended above COVID, you know, for a week.
Yeah, right.
Bunnings.
There we go, Carolyn.
Bunnings is an Aussie success story, but it's also in New Zealand. Lowest prices are just the beginning, though some ads probably won't translate.
Now is the perfect time to give your deck a bit of love.
There's also a bootleg Bunnings in Bali, and in 2017 it opened in the UK.
The UK has been waiting for something like this for so long.
Now open on Griffiths Way near Sainsbury's. You've got to come and see it.
Bunnings Warehouse.
Lowest prices are just the beginning. That's our policy.
I hate that BBC adaptation. It's a bit shit, innit? The UK venture was a spectacular failure, and within the year it had folded like a sausage sanger. Priya, they're a hardware store. How did they screw it up?
So in terms of how Brits DIY, and I feel like I'm going to speak on behalf of the nation here and get lampooned because I'm probably not your archetypal DIYer, but I would suggest that it's a little bit more fiddling on the sides than it is structural DIY, where you literally put in some soft furnishing, change the door handles, throw a cushion out, and ta-da, you've done some DIY. Whereas here, it's knock the whole house down, rebuild the floorboards yourself. You know, it's insane amount of structural DIY that Aussies do. So I think in terms of product ranging, when Bunnings lands, Brits don't know what to do with tools and planks of wood, and certainly don't know what to do with outdoor furniture or barbecue grills. You know, it's one day a year where you can have a barbecue. It's just not appropriate. So I wonder if their product ranging wasn't really right. And then, like Aussies, Brits love to shop local. So the big local player is B&Q. They've been there for decades. They've got a catchy slogan, you can do it when you B&Q it. And they are the Bunnings equivalent in the UK. And Bunnings didn't offer anything differentiated from them. So customers vote with their feet and go, well, I'll just stick with what I know, you know? B&Q is good enough.
The Bunnings theme song is so popular it's been covered in rock and rap on TikTok.
Yeah, I want a sausage sizzle, snag in a bun like the sausage drizzle. This drop pop like pimple, do another show by the blow like whistle. Wait, let the beat air out, bunch of tools in the crib in a warehouse.
So, who wrote the original? This week, we went on an interstate odyssey to track down the until now anonymous person who composed it in 1995. 25 years later, he still gets royalties and secretly wanders around his local WA store whistling the tune. The first thing he said when we finally reached him, I knew this day would come. So tonight, we're excited to introduce Trevor Hilton, the only Bunnings staffer to have never appeared on camera until now.
Hello, my name is Trevor Hilton, and yes, I wrote that jingle on a nice sunny afternoon in January 1995. For me, it was just another day at the office, jingling away on this very keyboard, with this very floppy disk, with this very organ sample, this one. And so I rolled tape with my basic track and basically improvised over it like this. And now it's all this.
And now, the pitch. Tonight, we'd like to use the power of song for good and sing the praises of our essential workers. First, to Sydney.
Hi, I'm Julian Townley from the Red Republic. We want to draw attention to the risks and sacrifices our frontline healthcare workers take daily. Here it is.
Would you pluck a llama from a lake of lava? Or pull a fireman from a lion's den? Rescue a nun from a giant mouse trap, or save a polar bear from a melting ice cap. But there's thousands putting themselves in harm's way, fighting a deadly virus day on night on day. They do double shifts and sleep in their cars, don't see their kids while some whinge of closed bars. You've gone above and beyond what we asked you to do. So to all the healthcare workers, we say thank you.
Nice. And next, let's go to Melbourne and a song for the essential workers.
Hi, I'm Campbell from Smith Brothers Media in Melbourne. Our idea was inspired from the way we teach our kids important life lessons. We hope you enjoy.
The storm long ago changed life as we knew it. People sheltered in place, protecting their face. We all needed help to stay alive and keep moving. These heroes saved the day in a different kind of way. And the way we feel about these heroes now will never change. So thanks to our heroes, and thanks for your work, and thank you for helping to keep us afloat. And thanks for the risks and the path that you chose. So darling, what do we say to those everyday heroes?
Thank you.
Two songs to rival the Bunnings theme. What will our panels think? Russell, which did you prefer and why?
I actually really love the animation style of the second one, Will. However, the first ad, when it cut to the dark animation, that really drove the message home for me, and I got more of a thank you out of the first one as a result.
Carolyn, what about you?
I loved the animation in the first one as well. Like, it's very visually dramatic, but I actually really liked the song and the sing-songiness of the second one from the Smith Brothers, so that's my vote.
Priya?
There were quite similar themes there, so that use of illustration and the kids. For me, I think one worked a little bit harder, a little bit more emotive, and I think having that child narrate it gave it that little winning streak.
I thought they were both great, but what won me over was the childlike touch in the darkness. And I particularly liked the music change, when they moved from that happy child to a drone when they were talking about COVID, and then back to the happy child tone. So for me, the choice was clear, the first one.
Well, congratulations to the Red Republic. This trophy will get to you soon, thanks to any number of essential workers. If you thought you'd have to be a billionaire to afford $600 RM Williams boots, then it turns out you're right. RM Williams has just been purchased by Andrew Forrest, the mining billionaire who goes by Twiggy, even if Diggy is more accurate. RM also launched a new ad that received a ton of what can only be described as exposure.
Firstly, let me say, Hugh, that we are delighted that you love RM Williams boots.
I'm actually, in love. They're great. They're amazing.
Great.
Really?
This makes this next bit a little awkward.
Oh, we're on the same team here, man. So,
while we appreciate how literally you've taken the clause that stipulates you can only wear RM Williams.
My word is my bond. When I say I'm in, I am all in, you know? And honestly, it's me who should be paying you. It's a privilege. It is. It's a privilege.
That's lovely to hear.
I do want to note that you are allowed to, and we highly encourage you to wear other clothes.
I mean, look at this. Look at
clothes in general, not just.
Hang on. Look at this. It's one beautiful piece of leather. Beautiful stitching, and they're comfortable. I mean, the balls of my feet just feel like they've died and were widely mourned and just went to ball heaven, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know? Seriously, it's changed my life.
88 handmade processes, but I think you may be missing the point.
Oh, no. I hear you. Don't worry. Loud and clear. Only RM Williams.
Yep. You're going to stand up now?
Hang on a sec. Oh, this is... What is this?
It's a new chair, was.
A new chair? That's awesome. You should be sitting... Honestly, you should sit in there.
You can have that. No, I was just going to burn it.
Everything at RM Williams is just so comfortable.
Not everything is comfortable.
Oh, so when he does it, it's fine, but when I do it, I'm not allowed in the store. RM Williams is a luxury brand that used to be owned by LVMH, which stands for Luxury Very Money Havers. Priya, can a high-end company get away with showing Hugh Jackman's Wolverine?
Well, what we know is the key audience shopping luxury now is the millennials, and they are very interested in heritage, but they also do love it when brands mix it up and innovate and, you know, change and break their own brand codes. So if you look at Gucci or Louis Vuitton, they've all done similar things where they've taken quite formal or professional kind of brand codes and then they've just mixed them up a bit and been a bit more playful. And I think that's what R.M. Williams are doing here with the Naked Hugh. He's a brilliant fit for R.M. Williams because he is an authentic Aussie, like the product that he's promoting. He's also a global megastar. I think that helps, and men and women alike love him. And I think the nakedness just takes their brand into a bit more of a playful space, kind of modernises it a little bit. Their previous work is all around undeniable character and it's very serious and it's quite worthy, whereas I think this just moves the brand on a little bit, still under that same strapline of undeniable character, but kind of showing a different side to what that character could be. So I think the Wolverine will be quite shareable and I think people will enjoy it, yeah.
R.M. Williams has one of the strangest brand positionings, I think. It's kind of rich private school boy meets farmer. Like, they don't quite know what that positioning is.
If you've ever... I spoke at a beef conference once, and, in fact, I've spoken at several beef conferences.
Who hasn't, mate? Stop boasting.
And it was funny, because I was talking about brand to these guys, and it was all farmers, basically, in the audience, and there was probably, in the audience of 300 people, maybe 4 women. So, but I was talking about brand to them, and I was kind of giving the essence of what brand means, and I said to the audience, and if you don't think you care about brands, have a look at what you're wearing, because every single one of them was in a check shirt, jeans and R.M. Williams boots. And they all were driving white Toyota Hiluxes in the parking lot as well. It was a sea of the same car. So brands are very important across different segments, and I do think that R.M. Williams really touches into the fact that, yes, they're very high quality, but they are also Australian. And Australia does love this idea of things that were born of the country.
I don't see how it sells one pair of boots. I don't understand why they've chosen to do a piece of advertising like this. It is about authenticity. It's about character. It's about the fact that these things are handmade in a factory in Adelaide. So I actually want to see the boot being produced. I want to see the money because they are expensive. So it's important that it's explained to me why they're expensive. They're expensive because they're made in Australia, where of course we have got very high wages. They're hand produced. Yes, I can hear a Hugh Jackman voiceover, but I don't know that he needs to be naked on a chair talking to an RM executive. It strikes me as being a really weird way to advertise that brand.
Well, I think that the brief for this would have come directly from the fact that they were not going to do TV advertising and they needed to have something that was a big enough hook to drive people online to watch it.
I do think they're trying to modernise as well. So they have done all the stuff about quality and where it's from, and you see the cobbler making the boot and nailing it in. I think that has a sort of shelf life, though, and I think what this is doing is opening up the brand to a new audience and getting new people interested in it. And they are moving to more of a city slicker audience, you know, who do have the disposable income to buy these things. So that is the shift that I think they're taking the brand on. The beef farmers are already wearing them. Now they've got to get the city slickers in them, and they've got to do something that cuts through.
And also they want to attract women to that brand as well. And
we're sick of the cobbler. We want to see Hugh Jackman's cobblers.
Putting his smelly ass on the couch.
Well, that is actually the only flaw in that ad. The fact that the guy says that a naked Hugh Jackman's been on his chair and he's going to throw it out rather than auction it on eBay for about 10 times the price.
If you look at the YouTube comments underneath that video, there are people saying, how much for the chair? Yeah. You know, like people love this guy. He is incredibly lovable, you know?
This ad isn't playing on television, but it was online 2.5 weeks before the sale of R.M. Williams. Todd, was this made to sell shoes or the company?
Both. So you might notice that whenever a company is raising money or if they're selling, there's often an increase in advertising because advertising can bring a lot more attention, make a brand feel more important than it is. It can give a presence in the market. Hugh Jackman was a 5% shareholder of this company, and he stood to gain $25 million from the sale. So for $25 million, I mean, if you think his last 2 movies combined did $60 million, $25 million for some ads, most people would get their gear off for that. And I think they wanted people talking about it around the world because that gives it that cachet. So I do think it was geared up towards the sale. But of course, Twiggy, he did something that is even more iconic Australian in his negotiation, which was he downed the price. Hugh only got 10, so most people would still get their gear off for 10 though.
I definitely think it will sell shoes. So it absolutely still has your boot front and centre. They're still talking about one piece of leather and 88 handmade processes. You do get the
Do you remember
creds
any
in
of
there.
that?
I
Looking at
remember
him
that.
naked?
I remember that because it's a combination, you know. He's so obsessed with the shoe. That's the gag, right? Like he's so obsessed with the boot that he doesn't even notice his nakedness. We're all just letting the nakedness wash over us.
Yes, yes.
I just think it's really odd. And it was made for the sale. It was 100% made for the sale, as in for the sale of the company, because you can have Hugh as your global ambassador. That obviously adds value to the brand, to the business, and therefore it was made in order to just agitate to get that sale done.
But I mean, he has been brand ambassador for a couple of years now, so I'm assuming there would be in his contract that he's got how many appearances and how many things he would actually be lining up. And I mean, I don't know exactly what Hugh's schedule looks like, but who knows how far he has to be booked in advance. Now, I imagine their marketing team are always developing ways of actually using him as part of their coverage. So I don't doubt certainly that the timing of it was good, but also I would question, like 3 weeks out from the final sale, like the negotiations, I'm assuming, would have been well in hand by the time this actually went live. So if it was kind of a final push for a higher price, it definitely didn't return on that.
It's very strange, isn't it? Because even in the ad, the executive is talking about the clause in the contract.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that makes me think, did they actually just make this advertisement for presentation to potential buyers? And then they got so excited about it that they decided to roll it out. But maybe the only audience was potential buyers. If that's the case, then the ad makes sense to me. Beyond that, it doesn't make any sense.
Aaron Williams doesn't just love the boy from Oz, they love being the brand from Oz. Just this week, the Defence Minister gifted a pair of RMs to the Sultan of Brunei, who looks thrilled. They're so Australian that their belts are made of kangaroo. Poor Skippy. They're so Australian, plenty of their clothes are made overseas. Carolyn, can you lean too heavily on brand Australia?
You can, and I do think that countries, like other brands, go through cycles. So they have ups and downs and things as you go through. And, I mean, when Crocodile Dundee was released in the 80s and, you know, Olivia Newton-John went and launched Koala Blue over in the US, you know, there was a huge momentum behind, yeah, Australia's really cool. Then we got Daggy again, and then the Olympics we got a bit cooler again. And it seems at the moment we're doing very well in Hollywood. So we've got the Hemsworths, we've got Hugh, we've got Nicole, you know, all of these people who are, you know, successfully Australian. So there are some Australian things that, yes, the rest of the world might be interested in, but certainly leaning on Australia and then having things manufactured elsewhere. Well, I mean, if you can do Make America Great Again, hats made in China, and that seemed to work for them. There's a possibility by consumers.
So, Will, the opportunity for Australian brands is completely and utterly underestimated. The world sees brand Australia up here, and yet we sell ourselves down here. Many people in the world see us as being the most successful country in the world. And then have a look at how we've dealt with COVID. That's only going to support the proposition that we are the most successful country in the world. What we do here is unbelievable. It's an incredible, incredible brand opportunity for Australia. As I was saying, there's this gap. Aaron Williams is down here. The world thinks that we're up here. They've got all this equity that they can trade off. And lots of food brands can trade off that, lots of tech brands, lots of medical brands. We have got the most unbelievable opportunity to make this country incredibly wealthy, not just unbelievably wealthy, and we need to go for it. It drives me mad, this idea that we are overusing this brand Australia. We've been underusing it for freaking decades, and we need to get a goddamn act.
I mean, I think you're better when you don't draw us a picture.
I think there's a lot of distrust in the world, and I think COVID has turned us inwards. I think we are looking more, not just our country, but countries around the world are looking more local for products. A lot of that's fear-based. My fear for a high-priced luxury item is, I think, nationalism and made in Australia when versus price, price tends to win. I understand their positioning. I understand they want luxury, but I think Australians are smart enough not to pay $650 for a pair of boots.
No. They can be the Australian Ralph Lauren. They can sell lifestyle to the world, and they can sell lifestyle to the world at triple the price that they've currently got. There's no reason in the world why I shouldn't have an R.M. Williams couch in my unbelievable ranch. I should have R.M. Williams curtains. I should have an R.M. Williams freaking kitchen. They have got unbelievable... They do. They can sell that aspirational part of what it is to be clean, sun, wealth, stable, well-educated. R.M. Williams can attach themselves to the Australian brand and just brand it. Twiggy's got it for a steal.
I think if they're going to do that, though, they have to walk the talk. So they have to pay taxes, they have to support local communities, and they have to employ locally. So where it has been strong in the past is they've got this manufacturing prowess in Adelaide and they've leaned heavily into that, and that stirs up the national pride and a sense of you're doing right, you're supporting local. And I think if they want to leverage that, they've got to continue to do that. So it's not OK to ship those curtains or those jeans off to China to be made. Do it here and then, sure, leverage Brand Australia because it's credible then.
Yeah, made in Australia doesn't work if it's not made in Australia.
Yeah.
And I do think that there's a lot to be learnt from the Bonds experiment. So when Bonds eventually shipped their kind of manufacturing offshore, they went through a really big brand hit because people loved Bonds as being an Australian brand. But I do think it's interesting that they have kept the boot making here, even though the other products may have gone out. And arguably, the boots are what people think of as R.M. Williams. So having the other kind of satellite products made elsewhere isn't going to cause the furore that having the boots made elsewhere
At the moment, they think of the boots, but as soon as they're doing kitchens and curtains, we're going to think about those as being R.M. Williams as well.
Yeah.
Hugh has been a huge for brand RM. He even went to their workshop to demonstrate why he's called the greatest showman.
The first ever pair of R.M. Williams tap boots. How's that?
You should see him do it nude. Thanks to our panel, Russell, Carolyn, Priya and Todd. Tonight we excavated the original composer of the Bunnings tune, so we thought we'd leave you with his exclusive cover of the only song with even more literal lyrics than Bunnings. Spoiler, the nah is nah to advertising. We'll see you next week.
1, 2, 1, 2.